Michael Lewandowski here for Vlog 3. So, just going to go through these questions here. So, how have my perceptions about secondary general music changed since the beginning of this course? I think the big answer to that is it concerns the informal learner, and I think this class strengthened my knowledge of the informal learner, how to work with that a little more effectively. But I used to consider that intrinsic motivation, and that means that students, if they're intrinsically motivated, they would be more willing to, or they learn to learn on their own. And that's where I wanted my students to be. And I think I actually was doing a little bit of informal learning when I taught my guitar class to middle school students. So I would, at the beginning of the class, the beginning of the whole semester that we would take the class, my students, some of them were non-music learners, and I would do an interview with them, and I asked them what song did they want to learn on the guitar before they had any knowledge whatsoever of the instrument or maybe even music itself. So students would write down their choices for songs to play on guitar, and I would learn how to play each of their tunes that they would pick and kind of show them how to get there. And it didn't take overnight. I mean, I would have to show them the guitar chords. I mean, it was a lot of things that led up to learning their songs that we had to cover before they could get comfortable playing their song. But I think having that song picked for them really made them more motivated on their own to stick with it, because learning how to play a guitar, as you will probably all know if you have taught that it is painful to play. You have to stretch your fingers so much, push the strings down to the frets, and it leaves little marks on your fingers. It can be, you slide in your fingers across the strings, it could hurt, and sometimes I wonder why anybody sticks with it at all. But I know why. It's because when things sound good, when you can hear a song that you might pick, and you realize you can get there by hard work, and it's an incredible experience to be like, hear a song on the radio and then put it together. It's like, I can do this, I can play this song now. So I believe that I call that intrinsic motivation, and it might be similar, but I think as the informal learner, I think it's even more strong now, because you're also tying into the connections that they're doing this stuff already. They're listening to music at home. They're listening to rock and roll and things of popular music at home. So they are studying and singing along, and they want to copy this stuff. So it's a good thing to tie into with them, and I want to do that a lot more. So so when I did my lesson, so this is in planning my lesson, what was my chief inspiration or my influence? So there were two for me. My lesson was all about African drumming, and it was to teach the students a song called Pon Logo. And Pon Logo is from Ghana, and it's a 3-part song, and each part is not that bad when you have it on their own, but when you have to put all 3 parts together, it can be a little tricky to coordinate. So group cooperation is very important. So I think that was my number one, one of 2 reasons why I chose this. Well, the fact that the students are engaged by actually making the music is probably the top reason. When you're drumming, you're actually doing the activity together. You're getting your hands on the instruments, and you're engaged in making music. And also, I think another big part of my inspiration for choosing this as my lesson is because it shows meaningful cultural experiences, and I think that's very important to me. I don't live in an area where there's a lot of diversity, and I wish I did, because I think the students would benefit from experiencing relationships with people of diversity a little more. I think I've seen some things in my classroom that don't bode well with me as far as race relations and things, comments that I've heard, you know, and I try not to let it bother me, but I also try to set the tone and set the mood for positive multicultural experiences and cooperation within the group, no matter where you're coming from or whatever background. So that is very big. I want to be an inclusive classroom, so these multicultural lessons are definitely important to me. So that was why I chose that. I want to tie in a little bit of some of the stuff that I've been reading in as far as you know, the materials in the units, and one of them, the book Engaging Musical Practices, has got so many good ideas in there. And I know I had written about the chapter with the drum set lesson, and I think that that would be a perfect addition to the Pon Logo lesson, you know, as far as a bigger unit. So that's coming down the line. But man, I just wanted to touch upon that book. I mean, there are so many really good ideas in there about what to do to get the kids engaged. And not only that, but so many places to go afterwards, so many resources to look into, listening examples, books with more music in them, different things. I really enjoyed that after he the chapter on the drum set, they were talking about the rock beat, but there was so many more applications and extensions you could cover afterwards, which is you know, going into the Latin musics, the bossa nova, and the salsa, the samba music. I mean, I think that you could do the same thing that you did with the rock and roll drumming, and all the music, all the figures you need to read are in there. So what an amazing, valuable resource that book is. Oh yeah, calypso and soca. Those are some of the other styles. Reggae music, which I enjoy doing a little bit of time into reggae and calypso. So, and he also has many resources on the subject, but he got me interested in looking at this book called Ancient Traditions, which I would like to check into, because it has many more different drumming examples that I could probably use. So it's a good place to, you know, this book, Engaging Musical Practices, is a great book to have. I'm really glad that I've been reading it. So also the drumming unit is an important unit for me, because it gets the non-music learners into doing musical things, and I think that they can get connected to it pretty easily, even with no experience. Whether you're an ensemble student or not, I think you could learn something about drumming and jump into it, and it's kind of it can be easily scaffolded for students. So all right, well, moving on. Have I tried any of these strategies? Well, I've talked before about informal learning, and I definitely have used that in my guitar class, and I want to explain that what was the outcome. I think this is an amazing thing, and this is an inspiration to me, kind of one of the reasons why I keep doing what I'm doing. I've had students that I've had in guitar class, and they've signed up for a whole year. Usually we worked a trimester system when I worked there. And so I would have returning guitar students. I had a student take the class each trimester. I had him for the entire year. And he became a student leader. And by the time he had graduated, he was, you know, he said, Mr. Lewandowski, I don't know what I'm going to do without you anymore. And who's going to teach me guitar? I said, well, I mean, you already been learning the chords, and you know how to, you already chosen your own song to learn each trimester. You've learned how to do more than one song now, so how do you're going to keep learning songs after that, right? And he looked at me and he says, I guess you're right. And not only that, but after he graduated, he used to send me little snippets of videos of stuff that he was working on. So I think that was the best thing I could get from a student afterwards, is that he's continuing to learn after that, after I've taught him, and I taught him how to learn, so he's learning new material on his own, and that's where it's at. That's what I feel has got to keep on going. I think that when you give students the choice, which also I want to bring up the lecture that Dr. Gulish gave for Unit 3, and I think that her organization of her interview process with the students is really quite amazing, and that is one of the things that I'm talking about the things that are working in my classroom, but it also, one of the questions is, if you don't currently teach music, what is the stuff in this unit, how are these discussions influencing you? And yeah, I am teaching, I've been teaching, but I want to tell you still how they're influencing me and how they're, I think that the interview process her interview process is amazing, with the, asking questions like, how do you feel going into the project, and what are you planning on doing? And then you put it really in the students' ballpark. You put it in their court, and they're more responsible for it. And you're giving them the whole, you got to prep. What are you going to do? You got to think about it, the brainstorming, and then you got to go through the process, which she does journaling online with the Google Classroom, and I think that is awesome too. I mean, this year, when I started, I switched jobs. I went from being a K through 8 teacher, pre-K through 8 teacher, to a high school and 8th grade general music teacher. Well, high school chorus, and so I was not a Google school before. So I changed schools and learned the Google Classroom as well. And which brings me to mind of adopt before you use. That's another strategy that I think that's pretty well said, and I definitely live that. I don't want to present something to kids that I'm not ready to present. I don't feel strong about that, so I agree with that 100%. Before you roll something, make sure you know how to use it. Maybe there's a student that might be able to help you, but you don't want to be spinning your wheels in a classroom when you don't have any idea what you're trying to do, or how to show students that you don't know how to do something. That's a bad place to be in. So but I think that having that technology element, though, where they have to, hand it in every day, if they're all required to have the Google Chromebook anyway, I think the journaling process on the internet like that is very easy to be, accountable for. You either have the document or you don't. But there's a couple technological caveats that I got to tell you about. Number one is sometimes computers like to do whatever they want to do. Whether you know the program or not, sometimes those computers can act up on their own, and that can be really a pain when you're in the middle of a lesson, for sure. I mean, I don't need to tell, it's kind of like Captain Obvious there. I mean, technology always, it gets finicky when you're in front of a crowd. So the other thing is, one of my experiences with the middle school crew is that they lose their technology privileges. They'll break their Chromebooks. They'll smash them on purpose. They're abusive to them. They're not taking care of them, or they'll look up porn. Heaven forbid. They'll try that stuff and they'll get away with it, and then they'll get caught because you just shouldn't be doing that. They don't know that the help center there, the technology crew is aware of the cookies on your computer. So, but I mean, you'll have your students coming up to you, and they'll tell you they don't have a Chromebook. So you're going to have everything you're doing on hard copy too. And so if they don't have a Chromebook, you can hand them a hard copy of whatever you're doing, or be able to send them to the library. But I mean, if you're giving them a lecture or working on something together, you want to keep your class together. So if, kids, I always say the kids that are goofing off and the ones that are in trouble are always making the teacher work extra hard. So I really enjoy the you're going through the prep, the process, the product, and you're asking the students, like, how would you describe your experience? Of course, you're going to say, what did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? What could you do better? But questions like, what did you learn about yourself through the project? The self-evaluation at the very end, it's like it puts it into the student's own, own responsibilities? Did you stay on task during, did you keep your time well spent? Did you work well with your group? All these things are important questions to ask. And also the peer review part of it. Like, so, you know, and I also think that it's very, very important to, to honor the students that try. I mean, even if you try really hard, even if you work really hard at something and you produce something and the product is not exactly where you wanted it to be, that's not necessarily a failure anyway. I mean, sometimes you might not get the best product, but the process was well worth it, so you have to honor that. We don't want kids to fail for trying hard. That's not a good idea. So I mean, it's inspiring. You do want the kids to honor the process rather than say, hey, I just want to get that grade. What's my grade going to be? How about the process? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And I think this is tying in a lot with a different class I'm taking right now with Dr. Renzoni. And it's the curriculum, asking the really important questions, the essential questions. I think and starting with your goals, when you know the goals first and you know what you want your students to do, then you work backwards and you get there from that way. But having them understand that process and being a part of that process rather than the number, that's important. So that is signing off on Vlog 3. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at Vlog 4.